truck.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, emergency water use. Yeah. Well, now we've got plenty of single-use things with masks and
Everything is
Oh, yeah.
single use.
You find those everywhere.
So do we have a schedule for dredging the pond yet?
No, it's not blocked, yeah. No, not yet. We're, matter of fact, right now I'm working on getting the plan put together to go out there and get rid of that Paris feather.
Get rid of it?
Yeah.
Good.
We're working on that plan right now. Matter of fact, I got an email.
Maybe a little bit.
I think it was,
Yeah, so, but mostly.
today's Thursday. I think it was Tuesday. I got an
Either way,
email.
whichever way you.
Sent it back, asked for some more information. It just wasn't capturing everything that I was looking for.
Yeah, or, yeah,
So-
so just,
Yeah, hopefully we get that done here soon.
oh yeah, we'll get there eventually, yeah.
That storm really put us behind a lot of stuff.
What?
The storm
Oh, yeah.
just really just put us behind a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Focuses
Christmas
have been
decor and all that kind of
Focuses have been shifted.
Exactly.
And so,
Three big trees down right there. That's brutal.
well, yeah, that. And matter of fact, today I was out today and
There's actually four. There's three down low and then there's a big one up by the
Yeah.
pond.
Well,
Really cool.
I just discovered, sorry, I got that pothole project going on today. Trying to be out doing inspections as well. I took a picture of it. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, right here.
Hard to say. Anyway, just too many different.
Going down
I don't know if.
commercial. And
Oh, yeah. That's right in front of my house.
this is commercial. This is commercial going. This is tent is down here. And so I stopped there to take a look at it.
Yeah.
The guidelines are supporting that tree for the power line.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. You have to like crouch underneath
Yeah,
to
so
walk on there.
I just noticed it today, and so I'm trying to get in touch with Pat Power. I don't want to touch the tree because of the power lines.
Yeah.
That'd be bad.
Hey, Sam.
So it's
That's
just,
awesome. You guys are gonna take care of that tree?
yeah, that tree's gonna come down as well.
So if you-
We're gonna turn it over to Pat Power because I don't want to mess around.
Yeah.
Our guys aren't gonna touch it.
So there is this weird, it's like a, I'm guessing it was like a
There's a driveway there.
driveway there, and that's pretty gnarly too.
Oh, curb cut that used to
But
be there.
it's strange because there's not, it's like a downhill yard.
Yeah, it's, I believe it's, I want to say it's a right of way. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I want to say it's a right of way. I think at some point in time that probably was, there was a house or something down there.
Yeah.
That probably serviced it, but, yeah.
Well, that'd be awesome because I walk, so my house is
Yeah, I know.
this way on the 11th, yeah.
Yeah,
So I walk right through, underneath that tree.
Yeah, so I don't know if you'd want to walk underneath, you might want to.
Yeah, that's probably a good call.
I think it's,
should've mentioned it.
I think it's being supported pretty
Yeah.
well by that guideline, but,
We're up and running.
oh, we got a meeting starting.
We're ready.
All right.
If we're all ready, I will call to order the January 20th, 2022 Coos Bay Parks Commission meeting. We'll start with roll call.
Carmen Matthews.
Sam Crowley.
Bill Davis.
Kelly Burnett.
Greg Hamblett.
All right, and with that, let's approve the minutes of our December 16th meeting.
Can we get, I'm sorry, Sam, can we get all of our team's members?
Oh,
Now,
yes.
this is Coco Sutton, and I am present online.
Also, Bev Myers online.
And it looks like we have at least one guest.
Yeah, Jason Niemer from the Pacific Upshot Consulting.
All right, thank you all. So to approve the minutes of our last meeting, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the December 16th meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All right. Our,
We need to do all in favor.
and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? And the motion passes to approve the minutes. Our first order of business is citizen input and public comment. Is there anyone that has something to say not related to our agenda items? Some coming up.
Is Cricket Souls, and I live in Coos Bay. And I will speak on another thing later on your agenda, but I just wanted to give you a sort of a heads up. So, and I have some flyers if you'd like one. So this week, starting when they put the exhibit up on Monday, will be an exhibit on Stuart Rusa at the Coos History Museum. And my daughter Becky will be giving a presentation the following Tuesday on his connections with Coos Bay. So he was an Apollo 14 astronaut, and he picked Coos Bay as his hometown to have his parade, and it was a big deal. He'd also, before he became an astronaut, he was a smoke jumper stationed down in Cave Junction. So they knew he was interested in forestry and trees and whatnot. So they encouraged him to carry some tree seeds to, he was the command pilot, so he just circled the moon, which he did. And he took 5 different species of seeds and took them with him. And then afterwards they were grown out, grafted, different things, and primarily given out for the bicentennial. So there's an original moon tree at the Capitol, and one at OSU, one at Warrensburg. And I think that's the only Oregon ones that they have. So we were able to work with a whole chain of command to get some new trees grafted. So we have 9 little babies growing on our front porch with the intent that one could come to Coos Bay, or even 2 could come to Coos Bay. When I talked with Roger Craddock, we both came to the sort of light bulb moment and said, wouldn't that be cool if we could baby one along and plant it at the library? You know, kind of the reach for the stars kind of attitude that you get with that kind of thing. But we have another one that could be planted in Mingus or somewhere. And then one will go to Simpson Park, but again, they're still in the state of flux, getting that going. And one will go to Cave Junction, to the city park there. And then the others are sort of, you know, we're kind of running an adoption agency for our little trees. So we'll work with the tree board a little bit more and figure out what we can do, but also want to work, you know, kind of a heads up to the Parks Commission if ever someone knows of a good spot, knows of a good idea, whatever.
What kind of trees were they?
So what we have is Doug fir, because that's what'll
Yeah.
grow here, and state tree. And so, like I said, one came from the one at the Capitol, which had taken quite a beating in the ice storm they got there. So one from there, one from PV Hall at OSU. And, you know, Becky's researched this, and there's always new information. Probably some of the original seeds did come from OSU, from their arboretum. Never really sure. But we worked with Space Grant. So this was a big deal. It was the largest parade that's ever been held in Coos Bay. It was May 1971. There were 150 entrants, not individual people, but groups entering. They had a destroyer in town. They had 2 flyovers. It was a huge deal. Yet not everyone remembers it, but it was a part of our history. The astronauts would fly in and go hunting out on Weyerhaeuser property. They did quite a bit with Mayor Verger. Every once in a while at the library, a book that's autographed by the astronaut still shows
cool.
up. So it was a part of the history, and we'd like to kind of keep recognize that and continue to make it go on.
That's
So-
awesome.
Any other questions on that? You know, we know the library's not gonna be here next week, but you can probably baby a tree for a while. Okay, and I'll have some flyers if you want one.
Did he like beer?
What's that?
Did he like beer?
Did he like beer? He owned a Gulf States brewery or something? Yes, he did like beer.
Well, maybe a tree at the brewery would be a good idea.
I'm not sure it would, sorry, I like your locations, but I'm not sure the tree would like them. So it actually, we offered one to Coos Bay 11 years ago when Becky did this for the 40th anniversary, and she had an exhibit at the old museum, and we offered it, and at that time, the Greg Hamlet position said, we wouldn't want a tree, so we said, we're giving you a chance again, because we think it's a good thing to kind of help remember the history. And these are planted all over the world, so you can actually track them, you know, you can do one of those road trip things and go
That's
visit
cool.
them, things like that. So, kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other citizen inputs online? Not appear so. All right, moving on to our next agenda item, the kayak launch at John Toppett's Park. Do we have someone presenting on this, or?
So Greg.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take care of that.
Thank you.
Greg Hamlet, Public Works Operations Administrator for City of Coos Bay. The City of Coos Bay was approached by Travel Southern Oregon Coast about the possibility of installing ADA compliant kayak launches within city limits. Back in November, we met with a group of representatives from Travel Southern Oregon Coast and the city, and we visited 4 possible locations. One was over by the Coos Bay Museum, the Maritime Museum. Another one at John Toppett's Park, another one at Hollering Place, and another one at the end of Fulton Boulevard, or Fulton out in Empire. After we visited all the locations, it was decided by the Travel Southern Oregon Coast at the middle middle lake at John Toppett's Park was the best location, based off of several different criterias, mostly because it has infrastructure in place already that can support ADA compliant kayak ramp. So right now that's the preferred location. Their staff is asking that the Park Commission provide a recommendation of approving that location. We've included a GIS exhibit, a map or location of where that would be. They have approximately $60,000 to donate to this effort, and that would include the purchase or the procurement of the ADA launch and kayak launch and the placement thereof. At this time, with the ADA improvements at the parking lot at Toppett's Park, I think we have enough capacity. I think we have enough improvements out there that we can satisfy the placement of that without many, if at all, any improvements to the area. So with that, I'll leave it at your guys' hands. There's the only ongoing thing that may come up or budget implications will be maintenance, periodic maintenance of that area out there. Don't know what those look like yet, but I don't anticipate it being very much.
Thank you. Do we have any commissioner comments on the kayak launch placement?
I think this sounds awesome. This is Commissioner Matthews. I think that we need more of these kayak launches, and this is a great place to start, especially with the library being sited there in the future. I do see that as a potential for some, I wouldn't say conflict, but if the parking design is changed at all, that would be more of a permanent structure. But I'm pretty sure that the design committee could work around that. I mean, do we have an idea of when this would be moving forward for installation?
Timeframe, I believe it's gonna be as soon as possible, probably looking at this coming, year.
Okay. And what kind of infrastructure is it? Is it a floating dock kind of thing?
Floating,
Yeah. So
floating
it's,
dock is my understanding, so, we haven't gotten to the particulars yet, that's
Yeah.
just what we discussed out on the site,
yeah.
during our visit, was that it was gonna be a floating dock, so,
Well, this makes sense to me. I think looking at the pros and cons of each location that was investigated, this seems like the natural choice. So I'd be in support of this.
yeah, and if you continue on through the pros and cons, you can see that the Middle Empire, Lakes, cons are pretty limited, so.
I like it.
This is Sam. I like the pros and cons because I can see in a lot of the other ones, it seems like it's a more difficult paddle. So I think this is like a really good starting point to get people to like, if kayaking becomes a really big popular thing, we could have the easy one to start and see if there's interest in maybe a more challenging, quote unquote, launch somewhere in the future. And I think it's a great idea. I love it. Thank you. Any other commissioner comments?
Yes, this is Coco Sutton, and I just had a couple of questions that maybe Greg could answer. I think this is a great idea. I know every time state or local parks do something in their plans, there's always a lot of requests for ADA and accessible approaches to natural areas. I wanted to know if the group that you're partnering with, is there a memorandum of understanding or something that requires into perpetuity anything on the city's part, like Marine Board does when you partner with them on boat launches?
So yeah, there will be a memorandum of understanding that the city will maintain the facility.
Okay, but there's nothing that says, 20 years from now, if XYZ happens, you can't move it without gathering up the original group, et cetera. I know Marine Board and some of those other things have really onerous MOUs when it comes to something down the road. So I wanted to just ask that question because also when you look at library siting down the road, if somebody needed to change parking or anything like that, I just wanted to make sure that if something had to be moved or modified, that the city or the city council would have the ability to do that without going back to the original agency.
So my understanding, and Coco, that's a good question, and I, to answer your question, the conversation that I had with them is that the memorandum of understanding, or the MOU, would be strictly maintenance-based. What I can do is I can reach out to them and get some more clarification on language and provide that at the next meeting, if need be.
Okay, I just,
If you want that language, I think reviewing that and for the best interest of the park.
thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. Moving on to our next agenda item is the disc golf course tournament at John Coppett's Park.
Well, we should probably talk about the action requested.
Yeah, do we want
Oh, where is this?
So,
Oh, moving.
um,
Oh, and that's with the. other
Yeah.
one. I see.
and this is Commissioner Matthews. I'd like to move that we recommend approving the location of the placement of the kayak launch in John Coppett's Park.
And I, Sam Crowley, will second that. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Now we can move on to our next agenda item, the disc golf tournament at John Coppett's Park.
So once again, Greg Hamblett, Operations Administrator, City of Coos Bay. On December 15th, the City of Coos Bay received a application, a special events application, permit application for the utilization of John Coppett's Park for a temporary disc golf course for a tournament to be held in May. With that special application, special use application, the applicant is requesting that portions of the park that fall within the footprint of the disc golf course that is attached be closed to the public for safety purposes, because they're going to be utilizing the pathways, if you will, as part of the golf course. We just don't want people or pedestrians walking along the course and potentially getting hit by discs. So the request is temporary closing the park during the tournament. The tournament would last 2 days in May. The action requested by the city is the recommendation to allow the tournament to move forward with the understanding that the course, the park would be closed just within the footprint of the course, as proposed on the attached schematic or exhibit. The city staff will provide trash receptacles and remove trash, but that's the extent of city involvement, city staff involvement with the tournament.
So, Greg and the commission, this is Jason. I just wanted to make a comment if that's okay.
Yeah, please, Jason, go ahead.
All right, so I put some more thought into this, and I know this is a super heavy lift to really close those pathways down to the public. So what we could do instead is just kind of maybe let people know that it's going to be happening that weekend, and we can put, because we have several barricades that we're going to use, and we can just basically say caution flying discs. They're a standard sign for disc golf courses, and we can just put those around the park and just kind of, I guess, hope for the best maybe, but instead of just trying to close all that down. That would be just something to think about.
So, Jason, can I ask you another question as a follow-up to that? I know this is moving from what was proposed then to now. Would it be possible to maybe have some ushers at each course just to kind of hold pedestrians back while a golfer is tossing his disc?
That would be a lot of people. But yeah, I think what could happen is at the, I guess, entrance areas to the park, maybe somebody could be there just kind of warning people. Mm-hmm. That could maybe work. Like maybe 4 or 5 people.
This is Coco Sutton, and I'd like to ask a question and make a comment. I liked the idea of not closing the park. My concern is when you close parks for events, you open yourself up to closing public spaces for lots of different occasions, to where pretty soon you can't use the park unless you have a permit. I did like the idea of having spotters or someone along the pathway, because that's a pretty large area, and it's right near the parking lot where it looked like they're going to start closing when you walk in. So that was my only comment there.
Yeah, Coco, exactly. That's pretty much the plan that I'm thinking would be a good one.
Jason, this is Commissioner Matthews. So it looks like most of the course is along the pathways. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you'd almost need, I mean, if we were going to do some kind of like oversight, there's a potential that you would want somebody at every hole, which would be a lot of people.
That would be 18 people. That'd be a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I'm thinking that's a heavy lift. I think the entrances to the park, you know, how there's little neighborhood entrances and whatnot. I think that would probably be the best bet if we were going to station people. And then having just the signage, just letting people know, hey, flying discs, caution, with barricades here and there, just to kind of let people know what's going on.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's several different ways to get on this path. There's still going to be quite a few potential ushers needed.
Yeah.
I wonder, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, alerting people that this is going on is potentially a good way to do it. But I worry about, I mean, I love this course design. I think it's great, but I do worry about it in its, you know, for its future design being so close to the walkways, that being a potential issue.
Exactly, Carmen, and I understand what you're saying, and that's why for this particular tournament, it'll be like this. But I don't in the future. I wouldn't design a course like that necessarily.
Okay.
It's just that it's so easy access, and we don't have to do much brushing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it would be a pretty heavy lift to like make a course in the woods there right now, with the brush and whatnot. But yep. So in the future, if this does go forward to become more of a permanent course, that would be, yeah, most of the tee pads and whatnot would be tucked away in the woods more.
Yeah. Okay.
And utilizing maybe the pathways just to get from tee pad, you know, hole to hole instead of throwing along them.
Well, I like the idea of amending the request to having it be just a posted notice that the disc golf tournament is happening, and to proceed with caution, watching for flying discs. I think that's a good way to go, as opposed to closing the park for any pedestrian use.
So one more comment. There are several courses. Well, actually, every single disc golf course that I know of does not close down a park to have just normal events and whatever daily things. One park in particular, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Dallas, Oregon, but that's a pretty popular park. And if you went there, you would see how the whole thing interacts, and it's pretty amazing. Like people are sitting at picnic tables and stuff, and discs are flying, and it tends to be a safe thing, and no one really gets hurt. So yeah.
Yeah, I just I know I've heard some complaints about the disc golf course expansion that's happened in Ferry Road Park, and the mixture of uses being a hazard to some of the people that live right near there. So I think that, you know, because it's more of a permanent fixture at this point, that's caused some issues. But I think if this is just a 2-day tournament, then we could probably make this one work. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
This is Coco Sutton, and I would like to add, I agree with what Carmen said on that issue of not closing the park, posting signage. I was wondering if there's enough time to put notices maybe in like a PSA or something so that people are aware of it, and don't come in planning to do something in the park and then get upset.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think we would if we move forward with this, I think we definitely would be posting PSAs for that tournament. We'll definitely do that. And we would work with the planners to make sure that we get that the tournament planners to make sure that we get that language correct.
I'm available. And yeah, so and one thing, Greg, you mentioned was that the John Tarbutt's parking lot itself is owned by the community college. I gather. So that is being worked out right now. with the South Coast Culture Tour, because the community college is a partner of the South Coast Culture Tour. So the parking area should be pretty much a go for us.
Good deal.
Any other comments?
Is there going to be food and beverage at this meeting or at this tournament?
Yeah, we're trying to get the community college actually and to supply some lunches for the Saturday piece. Sunday is only one round. It'll be a shorter day. There's a time limit, of course. Basically, we're going to be doing our thing from pretty much 9 to 4 or so on Saturday, and then from 10 to 3 or so on Sunday. So Sunday will be just kind of play and then go, whereas Saturday there'll be lunches available, potential food cart in there and stuff. Yep.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Is there a motion to recommend allowance of the closure of the park, or whereas we just discussed, to allow the tournament to go on with the PSA beforehand and well-signed signs around the course?
This is Coco Sutton. I would like to make a motion that they move forward with their permit with the caveat that there is no park closure, that there's the PSA in advance and signage, and if possible, some ushers or representatives that could interact with people if they had questions or something while that's going on.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed. The motion passes to recommend to move forward with a permit with the stipulations that Coco said in her
Amendments.
amendment. Our next item will be about the Marshfield Pioneer Cemetery. It sounds like Greg has something to talk about there.
All right. Sorry, guys. I'll see you later.
Oh, thanks, Jason.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
So this is Greg Hamblett again, and the issue at hand now is the Marshfield Pioneer Cemetery, and Cricket here is going to kind of walk us through this. I did provide a summary, basically asking that the Cricket's going to explain again here in a minute that they're looking to do a fundraiser to be able to rejuvenate or just take stock of some of the headstones up at the cemetery, and then if they need to, maybe do some condition assessments of the headstones. So right now, the action requested by staff is requesting that the Park Commission consider approving the request for holding a private fundraiser to perform the assessment. However, before we get to that point, we're going to let Cricket go ahead and tell us what she's got on mind.
So when the hardest thing to explain probably to everyone is that it is an assessment, it's just a survey. So going back to Travel Oregon, the cemetery was fortunate enough to get a small grant, like just over $2,000, to put up the new signage at the cemetery, and hopefully you've all gone by to see it. And we've had a lot more with new fence and brochure availability and all that kind of stuff. We get a lot more traffic in the cemetery, and we've had quite a bit of contact with relatives. So one of the questions that I'm always faced with from visitors is, well, why don't you fix this? Well, I'm sorry, I'm not in the business of fixing. I will work with the educational end and promotional things, but we installed the fence, did a lot of other things. I'm not really ready to get out the wheelbarrow and mix the concrete and fix things anymore. But there is a very good couple that runs Northwest Archivist in Albany, and they've actually done surveys down here for the lighthouses and things like that. And they do this for other cemeteries, and there's a sample of what the kind of thing they do. They go in and they make an assessment, take photos if needed, do whatever they think needs to be done. You know, does it need a new base? Does it need, you know, whatever it needs? And then that's available as a guidelines. So if it's somewhere in the future, the city wanted to apply for a historic cemetery grant, they could decide to apply for that and maybe fix up some of the priority ones that's been identified in this survey. Or if people want to do their own, the McEwens have contacted me about possibly fixing up their sites there. They would have some information of basically what needs to be done. And this is certainly a good couple to put things together. One of the few sort of, I don't know if you'd say authorized, but we know that they do it the right way, that they prefer to have them for any of the training that the Oregon Historic Cemeteries offers. So we could probably fund that with the small amount of money we have in our fund at Marshfield. But one of the main things is get people engaged again, because we did the cemetery fence with $1 an inch, and that got a lot of people that had never thought of the cemetery for years, people that went to school there, whatever. So that got them involved in that, and we can ask anyone. I never mind asking someone for $1 to, this is actually my son's program that he started, that he would, when he was raising money for Easter Seal readathon. So you can ask anyone for $1, and you don't, you know, I don't think that's a horrible thing to do. So that gets them engaged in what's at the cemetery, maybe people who've never gone to the cemetery or don't know how to get into the cemetery. So that's partly why we want to do the fundraising. And we're going to gear it around the pennies, because this is the last year that pennies will be in full production. Next year, they'll just have some sort of commemorative pennies that'll be produced, and although it'll continue to be legal tender, pennies will not be produced after 2023. So it's a good way to tie that in, and we can do some history, and we can do, you know, if we involve students in it, they can do some math figuring and all kinds of different things. So it's that two main purposes: one, to get some involvement, and then also just to establish what needs to be done there if it's going to continue on. Any questions on that?
Yes.
Yes, Coco.
Yes, this is Coco Sutton. And first of all, I wanted to say I think having a survey as the example you put forward is an excellent idea for liability concerns, future grants, and outreach to relatives or other community members that are interested in helping with something like that, like veterans organizations, if there's a veteran, et cetera. My one question would be, when you're doing the fundraising using a crowdsourcing venue, if that's what you do, is there any restrictions for the city concerning funding or budgeting on public property under the Oregon administrative rules or revised statutes? That's my only question. Thank you.
That's a good question, Coco, and I can find that answer out and get back to you.
And we have done this, you know, not saying that there isn't something, but we did do the same project when we did the fence, and we're not made aware. It went through here and then on to city council to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field, and it is a fairly small project with, you know, less than $2,000 expected to be raised from it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on that?
It's a great idea.
It's hard to address concerns of relatives when they would like to get things fixed, and we can't give them enough information, but we don't want to fix it ourselves. No.
So with the information, you could say, oh, it would cost this
Here's some
much to do
information.
the repairs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how Becky must have been a junior or senior in high school, so 2001, 2002, the city actually hosted a workshop. So there was a preservationist that came from Connecticut that put on a workshop in north of Oregon at one cemetery, and then put on a second one here at Marshfield Pioneer Cemetery. And there's some possibility that maybe there'd be worth doing something like that again. There was a small charge for it that basically just offset the cost to have him come. So, and it was surprising how many municipalities and volunteer groups sent people just to learn the proper way to do this stuff. So before COVID hit, the Oregon Historic Cemeteries had considered doing the same thing again. So there's always a possibility that it could be coordinated with that. And who knows if the timing will work out perfect, but that's in May, Memorial Day kind of time framing. That's the only time that really the cemetery is manicured, and that'll be the best way to get the survey done, is doing when it is manicured, because it's supposed to be more like a rural cemetery, a little natural. So that's why the timing would be such. And we obviously have more visitors than ever when they come at Memorial Day or something like that. So we'd also try and have them come down and let people know, and they could actually work with them if they wanted to try and hire them to do something if they had time. But we're, getting the both ends of what needs to be done is also, but we want to make sure people know that this is just to see what needs to be done, not that we're going to proceed with it.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other commissioner comments or public comment? All right. Is there a motion to approve the request for holding a private fundraiser to perform an assessment of the Pioneer Cemetery?
So moved.
This is Coco Sutton. I'd like to move forward with that assessment, but I would want to make sure that whatever methodology is used for the funds coming in, that it doesn't compromise getting grants or something in the future because of mixing public funds or public lands. That's my only question, and I think Mr. Hamlet was going to look into that.
So moved with amendment.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you very much. And the amendment passes.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? With no opposed, the motion moves.
Good deal.
Do we have any additional closing comments from commissioners or public comments anymore? All right.
Well,
So, yeah, actually, this is Greg Hamlet, City of Coos Bay again, one more time. This past Tuesday at council meeting, the topic was brought up by a citizen to convert the tennis courts over on West Park into pickleball courts. We don't have an official request yet. It was a topic of conversation. I just wanted to bring it up. I anticipate the next Parks Commission meeting that this is going to be a topic of discussion. I just wanted to bring it up now, that just to kind of start looking into it. I don't know anything about the pickleball. I've always wanted to learn how to play it, but I don't know how the courts are set up. I don't know anything about it. But I'm going to find out and work on that.
yeah, from what I understand, there's a movement that's really building a lot of momentum behind pickleball, so